minister, there was a kidnapping of the sister to the minister and her sons, and we just had reports now that they have been rescued. Now, of course, this what will be your reaction to that first before we go?
Yeah, first of all, I want to first start by saying it's a pathetic situation we find ourselves in. But honestly, I want to first also say kudos to the Nigerian police force for the actions that we carried out over the weekend in rescuing the kidnapped family. What really triggered my imagination was the speed with which it happened. Within 48 hours, they were able to get the family released and so on and so forth. It was good. I actually tracked it. I tracked the whole event, and I was glad, at least for once, that we saw a very straightforward release. And the reports are that like two of the kidnappers have been, eliminated. But I would have loved a situation whereby I wish maybe they'll caught one or two alive so that we could get further information on how, if this is a ring, if it's a syndicate, how they do operate and so on and so forth. But it was very, very good news, my brother. It was actually very good news. We were quite impressed with it. So, but the question, Nigerians have been crying out loud that, look, this family it's worked this way for the family of the former Minister of Power. What about the others, the kids in the bush, in the forest, held by the terrorists and so on? There have been various accounts to that. Some say, look, the scenarios are different. That these ones were actually kidnapped and they were discovered in the urban area. But that these ones in the bushes, in the forest, that it seems to be more delicate and more tricky. That's the narrative that it's being played out around there. But honestly, I want to say that whichever way it is, kidnapping is terrible, whether it's in the urban area or anything. I know that the government, I must say, I'm not going to say the government, they've actually been trying their best on this matter, but I think their best is just not, at this point, not good enough. If there's anything further the government needs to do to really get those kids out, I mean, they should play any card at this point in time. There have been various, suggestions across board. To myself, I'll say, look, if this at this point means we should get international help or assistance to get these kids out, because we don't like the reports we're getting. These kids are sleeping under the harsh weather condition. There was a report that even one of the toddlers there is dead. Yeah. And then imagine a situation whereby these kids not just being exposed to such situations, I'm very certain, because this is how these bandits actually operate. The executions are done openly. So I'm very certain that the execution of one of the teachers was done before these kids. These kids are going to be stigmatized for the rest of their lives and so on and so forth. So I am of the opinion, look, this thing should be a major priority. Sending in forest guards. I mean, there have been there's been a major outcry against that. Reason being that forest guards, what training do they have, for such rescue mission?
Look, okay, so I'm sorry to cut you at this point. Now, I know we've had this conversation before about the forest guards. Now, the idea the government is putting forward for the forest guards is not to conduct the rescue of these kidnapped children, but to prevent future occurrences. The idea is that since we need intelligence, these forest guards understand the forest very well. Most likely
you remember there was a situation where there was something like this happened, I think in one of the states, and they sent these indigenous guards into the forest. And the first batch that went in were eliminated by these bandits. Now, I want us to understand something, what we're dealing with here. Some of these bandits, I don't know. Listen, it's still an insinuation. But some of them have very high sophisticated training, apart from the weapons they use. Do you know that amongst these bandits, they have snipers? They use drones. They use modern technology. They use drones. They use RPGs. They use AK-47s. There is nothing they don't use. And then sending in these forest guards, whether as a preventive measure, whether for surveillance, whether for intelligence. Listen, how armed are they for such things? Because we sometimes call these bandits a ragtag army. But a situation whereby this thing started from the northern part of the country and it's now at the west. These people have actually moved, migrated. Did you ask the routes they came through? The technology, the ingenuity that they were able to move down up to the western part of the southwest. These are not people you send poorly trained personnel against. Because, listen, in strategy, they could be ambushed. They may know the forest terrain very, very well. But I put it to you that these people, these bandits, have been with us for a long time. They didn't just come into those areas. Don't think they don't know those terrains very well. They make their they start their movements over time. They come in various forms. They come in, sometimes as your keke riders. They come in as your bikers. They come in as your these.
There are people amongst
So
us.
they've been amongst you for quite a while. And the worst part is that they also have informants within these communities. So don't think they don't know what they're doing. They actually know the terrain. So bringing in these forest guards may not really be the best. The forest guards actually serve their useful purpose. Let's not write that out. Let's not push that away. But sending them against this, and then another thing we should understand here, maybe some of us don't understand the fact that these kidnappings, they're strategized. When kidnappings take place, those kidnappers are always on the move. They don't just kidnap and stay at a particular spot. They're always in transition. They're always free. They're always moving. So where you think the kidnap happened, if you go back there within the next hour, they are kilometers away. That is why most kidnap victims that are released or, whatever, you notice that when they give their testimonies, whenever they give their experiences, narrate their experiences, they tell you that they trekked over a large expanse of land for hours. They're always moving. Some of them trek for 8 to 10 hours non-stop. And that's why sometimes when they're released, they don't even know where they find themselves. Right. So in such a situation, I don't think it's just the forest guards alone. I think we need far more than that. That's why I said, if it's possible to ask a call for international help, I think we should.
All right.